Today's show is brought to you by our Extra Mile community on Patreon and mpb.com for quality used camera kit with a guarantee. Buy, sell, trade and create with mpb.com.
Metek Padovitz. Yes, Metek, you. Who, me? Yes, you. Sounds like I'm telling you off. You're in class. Metek Padovitz, stand up. You're okay. Don't worry, you're not in trouble. I just spied something in Facebook. Oh, blimey, I'm being attacked by the midges today. The attack of the midges. I'm quite happy when it's quite breezy. There's a bit of a breeze. I'll tell you where I am in a moment. And when the breeze comes along, the midges all think, oh, I can't deal with this. Quick, they dive for the bushes. Breeze ends and they all come out. Oh, quick, there's bloke. Put ourselves upon his head. Yes, Metek, I spied this in Facebook. At first I read it and I thought, oh, look at that. The great A.A. Milne, the children's author, wrote in Photowalk language before Sam said to me, don't be daft. That's Metek's interpretation of what A.A. Milne might have written when describing his wonderful characters, Winnie the Pooh and Piglet, who right here are walking along this tree-lined path. I bet they don't have midges. Yes, Metek, there's no midges in your story. They're walking along this tree-lined path on what looks like a brisk morning, a chilly morning. And here are the words that go with that particular picture. It was a wet, blousery day, which I assume is your version of blursery day. Piglet and Pooh wondered where they might go for dramatic images. I hope the fog rolls in, mused Piglet, as Pooh merely said aye, as he gripped his thermos and dead fly biscuits. It was at that point I realised that you'd changed A.A. Milne to suit the Photowalk and our theme of Garibaldi biscuits. Well, we're not in 100-acre wood today, although we do have to one day. We shall go down to Ashdown Forest, the inspiration, I believe, for that story. But we're walking along one of my favourite footpaths. It's glorious sunshine today, absolutely beautiful. Let me make a sketchbook image to start the walk. Sir Barkalot is with me today, so anything could happen. There's a corrugated building which I photograph quite often, and on days like this when the sun is out, there's a fantastic reflection in the canal. It's a very old building. I'm sure it would have tales to tell. Let me get a picture. 340th f4, 160 ISO. There we go. A sketchbook to start today's show. And on the programme today, a film about Dad and the echoes of time. For dads everywhere, really, this one. Why making recordings and photographs of loved ones is a wonderful gift. I was watching a YouTube video. Was it last night? I think it was. And they had somebody on there talking about legacy. Legacy is one of my favourite subjects, as you well know, along with dead fly biscuits, clearly. And the guy that was being interviewed said, well, I don't really believe in legacy. See, when you're gone, he says, what's the point? And I was thinking, no, you're missing the point. Legacy is what you leave for family. Legacy is what you leave of your name. Legacy is what in the years to come people can enjoy. I don't think legacy is a selfish thing. Legacy is for all around you. Oh, cue song. No, let's not start that route again. Anyway, so we're doing that. 365 inspirational help for those making a picture a day as a project. The answer to last week's pictorial quizette about AI, where we asked you to identify the real from those made-up zeros and ones pictures. And what was I thinking as I tried to make a picture for this month's assignment? Yes, I've been joining in. I made the schoolboy error from Schoolboy Errorsville, and I'll ask you later on to spot what I did wrong. I don't think it will take you long. Now, I want you to imagine this. You're making a photo project which involves you trying to get across a huge country, mainly by foot, hitchhiking, well, mainly hitchhiking actually for the long stretches, and then foot, investigating wonderful culture, meeting new friends and people, and you're sleeping on those people's floors while you travel, often you're sort of trying to find somewhere to sleep literally minutes, an hour maybe, before you have to put your head down for a night. It's that tight. And then you meet somebody who says, I've got somewhere where you can stay. Just jump in my truck here. Then drives you across the country into a forest where he says that's where the house is. That's where you're staying tonight. What would you do? What would you think? Because it takes a lot of courage and lots of trust to do what my guest shares today. His name is Victor Hübner, a German photographer who's really captured my imagination with his travels around the world. With, it seems, just a camera, limited funds, a few rolls of film, sleeping, as I say, on people's floors, and a great deal of, well, I'm going to use the C word a lot today, not that C word, obviously, no, the courage word, courage. It seems he grabbed one of our extra milers' attention and imagination too. Sarah Moorcroft. It was Sarah that introduced me, or who introduced me. Thank you, Sarah, to this fascinating man I'm all the richer for knowing now, and hopefully by the end of today's show, you will be too. So, thank you, Sarah. After listening to Victor, you might also find this month's assignment just a tad easier too.
Today on the Photowalk.
I do think the camera has this kind of superpower. Anyone who already has some spark of curiosity, if you then take a camera into your hands, and let's say you're interested in people, then you will find, if you have a little bit of courage, you will find open doors and ways.
So we talk about courage, and we talk about a particular personal story as well.
I was literally sitting there crying behind my camera. But it also teach me that my camera serves me as a shield.
The only show like it in the podcast sphere. It's the Photowalk. You and I making some pictures with our cameras or smartphones, sketchbooking our walk together, enjoying the letters and the stories that you've sent in. All made possible by our extra milers and mpb.com, which is a great way to buy and sell and trade used camera gear online. And I know this because I use them myself to buy quality, new-to-me kit like lenses, camera bodies and other accessories. The latest lens, the 16-55 that I bought for my Fujifilm setup. If you are buying, you get peace of mind with a 6-month guarantee. And if you are trading or selling, MPB will send a courier to pick up your kit on a day that you tell them to come. And once it's arrived at their warehouse, they've gone through all the checks just to make sure it's been graded properly. You get paid direct into your account. Quick, smart. mpb.com is a very easy to use website, and it's helping photographers to buy quality used kit or sell the stuff that you don't need anymore and you want to free up some cash and give others a chance to make their stories. Go to mpb.com. I will have a link on today's show page. Right, checklist out. Coffee, Garibaldi's, walking boots, and I think courage, because that's important today. Let's walk.
You know, in those crime films where somebody's been blindfolded in a car, then they escape the perps and the perpetrators, and then they have to try and explain where they were to the FBI or something like that. You might start to recognise some of the sounds of this walk as we walk past. Oh, I won't tell you. See if you recognise it. It's one of my favourite walks, this, and it's great to receive your pictures of where you walk. Now, these giant, great big machines aren't operating today, so the sound I thought you were about to get, oh dear, they're not working. All right, it's along the canal by those huge arms. You can hear some of the gravel being poured into lorries perhaps in the background, but they're not obviously shifting the gravel around today. There's also, I'm being followed by this, it's kind of like it's got a black body and black sort of no, it's a blue body. What am I talking about? Black laced wings, very black laced wings, a blue body, and it's following me very, very closely. I don't know what it is, but it seems to be very, very interested. The midges are out again. Quick, bring me some breeze. Let's run across here, pups. Midge-tastic this bit, come on. Oh, he's decided this is the moment. He wants to drag along a branch. I'm trying to get through the midges. They might not be down where you are, 1 foot on the ground, so bark a lot. Right, so let me know what that is. It's the man-eating aphid of You Believe Anythingville. I don't know what it is. I wish I was better at this kind of stuff. I should have a field book with me. I went to the podcast show yesterday in London. Turns out we are by metrics forming a really strong community. Saw a couple of people who are in podcast PR, and I feel vindicated in many ways when I was listening to the stories of download figures from other podcasts. I always thought that you had to have something like a sports bar podcast or just true crime for it to have a reasonable following. But it seems you and I, and my other listener as well, you count too, we're forming a decent-sized community. We're on the right tracks. That was what I wrote down from one particular meeting. You're on the right tracks. Letters. Let's start then. It's a letters show. It's a mail-based show. Let's start, shall we, with Sir Michael of Miller Time, otherwise known as Mike Miller to his friends. You've been letting me know your whys, the why of making pictures and how walking works into this too. And also this letter proves actually why recording the life of those special to us can be such an important legacy. I need to talk to that YouTuber. From Mike, dear Neil, over the past few months you've been asking guests and writers to the show about why they do photography. Much earlier on, near the start of the podcast, when it was known as Photography Daily. Yes, do you remember those days? I did write in and talked about my why. This month the point was once again emphasised as my dear father-in-law passed away in his 94th year. I didn't pick up a camera until after I married my wife in the mid-80s. She thought it would be a good thing if one or both of us were able to make some decent images so that we could chronicle things when children came along, which they did. Little did she know, though, what she was unleashing. It didn't stop there, and I didn't stop there, and I unofficially picked up the photographer mantle for her extended family as well. Photographs I've made have shown up at various celebrations, including celebrations of life across the decades. Since we knew that time would eventually catch up with Dad, I've been paying more attention to him over the past 5 years. In particular, I've scanned and restored many photos from his collection, even videoed him twice. With this footage, I put together one of my first films for YouTube, which is all about him. Now that, Mike, that is legacy, isn't it? Over the 86 minutes of the film, I've interspersed numerous images about things and places that he talks about. One of the first things harder to remember, says Mike, about loved ones after they've gone, is what their voice sounded like. Mike, I've been saying this for as long as I've been making, these podcasts and films. You and I are talking for the same almanac of life on this one, and you're right when you also suggest that as grandparents grow up, wouldn't it be great for their grandchildren to hear the words straight out of the mouths of their nearest and dearest? I mean, Mum's cassette, the cassette that we had for the answer phone at home is a great example of this. It had Dad's voice on it. And years after he passed, for a couple of years, that voice remained on that cassette. Every time I would call the house, even if I knew Mum was out, just to sometimes hear Dad's voice. One day, Mum recorded over the voice. And I was absolutely, I can't hide it, I was devastated. I said, Mum, we could have put a new cassette in. Oh, she said, I didn't think of that. And so that part of, I think it was a legacy recording. That part of Dad was gone forever. And I just, that voice was so comforting when he said, we're not, or whatever it was that he said, we're not in. Please leave him. He was so polite. Please leave a message and I'll make sure that one of us gets back to you later. It was that kind of message. And I missed that. I'd love to still hear that today, but the cassette is, alas, no longer. Now to AI, says Mike, and a positive. Since it's getting a bit of a pasting at the moment, isn't it? Especially during our show when we talk about AI. With, says Mike, the advent of more advanced artificial intelligence, I've been able to colorise several of Dad's black and white images after meticulously restoring them. I've attached the progression of 3 of those from the original scan to the restored black and white, and then onto the colorised version, helped assisted by AI. Everyone that I've shown them to talks about how cool they are. While some people may still be on the fence about AI, here is one place where I like what I can do with it. Anyway, that film that I've made can be viewed at, well, I'll tell you what, I'll put the film on the show page today. Oh, this looks powerful. We're just walking across a weir. No midges here. Bit of nice breeze, pups. It's a lengthy film, but it can give people an idea of a starting point if they're looking to do something similar when it comes to their own family's legacies. It's by no means perfect, and at some point I had to cut off improvements to just to get the film out so that family could come together, watch it and celebrate his life. Thanks for listening. Best regards from Mike. Mike, just before I reply, and on the coattails of your comments about the original mail you sent about your why, I did want to read the last words of that mail that you sent in a long time ago. Why do I keep doing it, says Mike? Well, I feel good when others feel good about the pictures that I've taken. While documenting and immortalising the lives of people we love, we become, in some ways, immortalised for being the one doing the documenting. And I think that really does sum it up. So thank you for your letter. Well, both of them, actually. I am truly sorry. I really am for your family's loss. I know that it would have been his 94th birthday, Wednesday just gone. And I also know that behind the scenes how much hard work you've been doing for Dad, looking after him, and making sure he feels comfortable. So my hope is that the audio that you've recorded, the film that you've made, which is, I think, yes, a great reference for anybody thinking, hang on, could I do something similar to what Mike's done? Yes, you could. I hope that brings comfort to your family in the years to come, Mike. Photo might well be in the title of this show, as is walk, but equally sound is the glue for all this. As Mike suggests, the part of the jigsaw that goes missing over time as you bring it out to enjoy over and over, maybe each holiday, the sound of somebody or the sounds of someone you love, they are the things that fade with the echoes of time. And I do regret that I didn't record my loved ones more. Oh, I'd love to have the stories my grandma. I'm sure some of them were quite fanciful and a little bit embellished, but the stories would have been great to have. They truly would have. But that's the benefit, isn't it, of age. You start to appreciate those sort of things when you're much, 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 much younger. And granted, we didn't have the kind of tools then that we have now. I mean, a smartphone then, able to make pictures, do video, record sound. I know that I would have embraced that. I know I would, but I was too young at that time, and I was thinking, well, you think life's going to go on forever, don't you? And as I made these notes the other day, reading Mike's letter, that notion reminded me of some lines to a musical. The brilliant Blood Brothers by Willie Russell. I'm going to stop here because there's somebody strimming, and I want to be able to read these, and you hear them above the strim. Willie Russell is a genius, and I saw Blood Brothers, the musical, 3, possibly 4 times in my late teens, early 20s. In the musical, there's a narrator, and he talks about the naivety of youth that I'm really hinting or referring to here, even if I've navigated you to the left fork of the river. Perhaps we've blathered a bit here, but these are the words, and they're wonderfully apt, I think. It's just another ferry boat, a trip to the beach, but everything's possible, the world's within your reach, and you don't even notice the broken bottles in the sand, the oil in the water, and you can't understand how living could be anything other than a dream when you're young, free and innocent, and just 18. And if only the 3 of them could stay like that forever, and if only we could predict no changes in the weather, and if only we didn't live in life as well as dreams, and if only we didn't stop and be forever just 18. I know I've gone slightly left field, but perhaps there's a lesson in there as the 8:15 to Pinstripesville goes past us. Nothing is forever, and we have a real gift, you and I, with our cameras and our creativity, of being able to record in every single way with that creativity, whether that's video, pictures, sound, life, and we can bottle it for all time. That is what legacy means. Two sounds, one of them rather nice, Barney just having a paddle, and the other one, a great big gravel train. I think I much prefer Barney having a splash in the river. Go on, have another splash. Go on, Barney, in you go. Go on. It's a long gravel train. What I should have done is waited for the train to go past, but we've got swans approaching this part of the canal which is shallow enough for Barnes just to jump in and have a bit of a swim. And swans, they're a bit, I don't know, I think you're probably going to tell me off for this, but they're a bit mean-spirited. Barney, come on, in you go, in you go. And they've kind of got their eye on Barney here. Come on, Barnes, this way. They're not our friends, are they, swans? Really, they should just come across and we just look at each other, admire each other. I mean, swans are beautiful. They make cracking photographs, but they're a bit, well, along this stretch anyway, they're just a bit unfriendly. Thank you, Mike, for your story just a moment ago. And on the back of this, just briefly, I'm aware we've talked about this a couple of times before, so I will keep it brief. From John Kenny. Hi, Neil. I'm a little behind in catching up on the episodes, hence only emailing you now. I just wanted to say how moving and inspired I was by June's legacy video. Now, June is a film that I made quite some time ago. It was called I Am 80. Was she a family friend, or was it a commission or personal project? I think you may have mentioned the video in a previous episode. Well, I have a few times. Did you need to undertake any particular planning beforehand in order to know what to ask her? I could see that she looked like she was reading from something, from a notebook. I started to research how to do an oral history project last year, but I didn't get very far due to the negative voices putting me off. Anyway, it was great to see what a valuable piece of work could be produced with that sort of thing. Thanks again for sharing. Well, John, she was my window cleaner's mother. It was loosely a commission, but a commission insofar as being asked to do something, but no money changed hands. And that particular one, it was a conversation I was having with Ian, my window cleaner, and he was talking about his mum turning 80. And I said, well, she must have some stories to tell. And it really just came from that conversation. The notebook, that was an A4-sized notebook that she wrote some thoughts down in. Very diligent. I didn't ask her to do it. She made some notes, some thoughts, and she read from that partly. And really then she just put a photo album on her knees and spoke from the heart as she recalled the photographs that were in front of her. As for negative voices sitting on your shoulder casting doubt, here's my advice. I don't know why those negative voices should cast doubt from other people, that's for sure. But look at that negative doubt sat on your shoulder now. Take your hand to it, swipe it off, poof, quickly, like that. Like it's an annoying man-eating aphid. Knock them firmly to the floor and walk on proudly. That's my advice. Right, here's a letter that has been hanging about in the inbox for quite some time now, so apologies, Dirk Van Haller, of beautiful Belgium land. I would love to do another trip to Belgium. I absolutely adore that country. It's a long, long time since I last went. Hi, Neil. Thank you for the podcast. Really enjoy it. The interviews and the letters, even the blathering. You're very kind. I have a feeling this week is quite blatherful. I was listening to episode 364. This is the one where within a few seconds of the walk, I managed to step into a puddle. This is me, that is. Completely swamps my boot. And I end up squelching around for the rest of the walk. Anyway, says Dirk, when you stepped in that puddle, I did one at the same time. There's coincidence. I was out walking my dog Monty, the beagle, so named after Monty Python, which I assume must be fairly large then in Belgium land as well. A few pictures from that walk for you, which I will pop on the show page. But talking about coincidence, my main reason for writing is that you featured a letter from Richard Yarp about a 365 project. I did one in 2019, and I joined a family photographer Flickr group to post my pictures. If I may give you my advice, you sure can. I'm always up for advice, never above it. It would be to join a friendly community like that when you're doing a 365. You'll get support when things get tough, and you wonder why on earth you started doing such a project. Even a short comment on your photograph or photographs, or just a like, is sometimes all the encouragement you need. You'll find inspiration, and you'll notice that other members sometimes struggle too and post pictures that aren't as good as maybe the days before. And finally, at the end of your 365, successful or not, gift yourself a photo book of that year because, well, it's easy to do. You've already selected the photos, and it's personal encouragement to continue making those photographs regularly. What great ideas. Kind regards, Dirk Van Haller. See, I knew I should have read this a while ago because I'm now a good way into my 365. I didn't join a group. I kind of quietly went about it, really. Missing some days, then making up for it on others, which may or may not, was probably not the purist's approach at a picture every day project. But the reality is, it has made me make a picture every day, even if I've not posted it. And sometimes I've made 2 or 3 in a day. I know I've got some trips coming up during the school half term, which is next week, and I dare say that some of those days are going to yield certainly more than one photograph. It's not like I save myself to post them. I just haven't been too strict of myself, particularly of late. What with my photography business certainly kicking in. In the last 2 weeks or so in particular, 3 weeks perhaps, but it has the 365 project. For those that are new to this channel, are thinking, what 36? What are you talking about? It is where you make a picture every day, take a picture every day, and you post it. The purest approach, as I say, is to post it every single. You make your post, you make your post, you make your post. But I also think that the project does encourage you to be creative every day, and that's certainly what it's done for me. The starting ribbon, by the way, does not need to be Jan 1, but these are very good suggestions. We have talked about 365 a bit over the past couple of weeks or so. I know I mentioned also of doing something in 2024. I've enjoyed the challenge so much. Maybe it will be pictorial, although I am thinking of perhaps a sound one. Not quite sure how a 365 sound would sound. I've Googled it, and you get lots of conferencing software, so there's not exactly a great amount of people there doing one already to inspire you. But anyway, Dirk, thank you for the letter. It's good to see where you are walking. So, let me introduce, let's get across this weir here. We're here. Come on, pups, this way. You certainly don't want to jump into that bit. There we go. Let me introduce my guest while we walk. This week it's Victor Hubner, who is based in Berlin, though the story today is mainly about his trip across America land. His book, The Americans I Met, fabulous book it looks. I've ordered mine, or I will be. Have I ordered it? I don't know. I did some ordering last night. Was that one of them? Victor, tell me. The book, The Americans I Met, it's out now. and I'll link to it in the show notes, of course. Victor is a photographer who has a deep interest in people. That's an understatement. Though how he makes his stories probably wouldn't be a method many photographers would choose to emulate. For reasons that may become clear, it's a fabulous story, and as I said right at the start of today's show, I'm all the richer for now knowing Victor Hübner. Victor, though you're based in Germany, you have some remarkable travel stories I would like to talk about today, and I'm going to start with the one that introduced me to your work, actually, the Americans I met. And it's kind of out of sync that we're doing this, because I know there's other stories that we will talk about that were shot well before this. But it's a photographic and oral history project that collects portraits of and conversations with people you encountered during this cross-country hitchhiking trip across the United States. 41 states in all. Was there a loose plan? Are you somebody who goes in with a loose plan? Because 41 states you're missing off a few, and I wonder why you're missing those. Maybe it's because you didn't like some of the states. I don't know.
Good question. Yeah, there was no real loose plan in that regard. I started off, I would consider it on a blank page. Let me go a little bit back for that. I think it's interesting for the listeners to get a better understanding. I moved to the US 2017 on a Fulbright scholarship to start my Masters of Photography, Masters of Fine Arts at Rhode Island School of Design. Soon I discovered, and I'm sure you're very much familiar with that as well as the listeners, that there was, during Trump's presidency, a lot of media coverage. Basically every single day. That kind of led me into, okay, what's going on in this country when I moved there, the curious interest. And I had no idea how to approach it. There was nothing here. There was no fixed plan. There was nothing in my mind beforehand. I just came with the idea of the media coverage. And by listening to people around me, locals, Americans at my university as well, my host family, other people around me, quoting, and I just tried to phrase it in a way, something like, we are living in controversial times. And that's sparked something inside of me.
I went there just prior to Trump being voted in. And then I didn't go for the whole of the presidency. And there was no reason for that. It wasn't a boycott or anything. It's just that I didn't go during his presidency. But I did find, and you may have found this, that it seemed easier for me to ask questions about what was happening politically because I had my British accent. People seemed far freer to talk to me than talk to each other.
Absolutely. No doubt about that. Especially later during the project, I'm walking literally on the streets and neighborhoods. I'm 6'11" tall with a big backpack, foreign German accent. That was quite an unusual sight in many streets there. People were very eager to talk to me, very curious about me. And then it was a natural step, most often without me asking, about them explaining to me what is going on in this country.
I have the romantic notion of travelling across the country, going between proper motels, not the sort of homogenous travel hotels that we seem to have in the UK under just a handful of brands, but proper motels with stories to tell. But you didn't really use that option, did you? I think you stayed in a handful, but mainly it was people's flaws and people that frankly you didn't know.
That's correct. Basically, the way I went about it and planned my nights was completely by accident. I made a list of rules for myself, thinking how can I get a better understanding of the current situation according to the people I meet or the Americans who would potentially host me. So let me give you really quick the 5 rules I made up for myself. Number 1, be open to conversation with everyone I meet. Number 2, do not use public transportation to maximize opportunities for encounter. Number 3, bring only enough money for food and photographic film. Number 4, no hotels, no motels. If necessary, sleep outdoors in a tent. And number 5, do not make online arrangements for transportation or accommodation. Which then left me only with walking and hitchhiking. Why these fierce rules? I wanted to force myself, push myself to go beyond beyond tiredness, to look for someone to host me. The idea was wherever I go in this country, be it city, town, village, even if I have to go from door to door and knock on people's houses, I need to find someone who hosts me for that night or longer.
So there must have been evenings with your camera. You've got your camera, your backpack, and you think, well, Victor, I've got nowhere to stay tonight. It's 8:30 p.m. It's going dark. I mean, literally, did you knock on somebody's door and say, "Hello, I'm Victor. I'm making a story about America. Any chance of sleeping on your floor tonight?" I mean, honestly, most people would surely have looked at you with an eye of suspicion, even though you had your wonderful German accent.
Okay, up front, yes, literally. I went, there were nights, and not too few, I literally went from door to door and knocked. Sometimes first door, other times hours went by and I couldn't find someone. So everything was possible. But one thing I was very carefully about, I never introduced myself with my project or what I'm doing. I waited. So I would stay between one night in 7 days with people who hosted me, and I would only at the very end introduce my actual project, what I'm doing to them.
Why was that? What was the reason behind that process?
Simply because I didn't want them to tailor any kind of answers that they were thinking I would need or want to hear. Because it was not just about photography. I was writing down my observations. I had several handwritten journals. I had, at the end, 80 plus hours of audio materials, very much about personal life anecdotes, situations, and political opinion. Yeah. And then my observations with my camera. And I didn't want them to serve me something they think I need.
How did the audio side work? Because I'm fascinated about that side, clearly being somebody that's into audio. And I often think with photography, it's a sort of missing gem, I think. Some photographers don't necessarily understand just how potent and powerful it is. And you do, and you did. How would you record them? I use my iPhone a lot for recording. I pop a wind deflector on the top, and that's it. That's my travel companion as far as audio is concerned. What about yourself?
If it was a really hectic situation, I would have used my iPhone. It happened a couple of times, but usually I would use my Zoom audio recorder. I had it with me, and the way I went about that is I would simply listen to people telling me their stories. I was there to listen to them. And then usually at a way later point, I would not record it at this time. I would just make notes in my mind or in my notebook. And at the very end, perhaps even the day I leave, I would come back to them and say, listen, I'm working on this project. We spoke already about that. Let's sit down and make a proper recording. In most cases, people were actually quite humble in one way, but also willing to share their story on tape.
You had to think very carefully about the photography in it, because you, as you said, you took just enough money for food and for film. You shot it on film.
That's correct.
And I mean, you could have come back with thousands upon thousands upon thousands of photographs. You weren't able to do that. How many did you come back with?
So I shot on a Mamiya 7 II.
So a big camera.
Medium. It's a big camera. I love the camera. It's a great, fantastic traveling tool as well, because it's fairly compact still for its size. And I limited myself basically throughout the time to approximately 350 rolls of film. It's not a lot if you think about it. It's like 10 shots per film, 3,500 frames. Yeah. It's not that much if you think in digital terms about it, in particular because I was doing this project on-off for 2 years. So it's not that much, but it made me, I would say, a better observer. It's not the first time I'm shooting on film, so I knew what I was doing, and knowing I'm out there in the middle of nowhere, there is no access to new film. No. So I have those rolls in my backpack. Every shot has to sit, or at least I would say, okay, I'm going to take this portrait now, and I'm not using more than 2 frames.
I see how that works with the portraits, but there is one particular picture which is a featured one within the publicity for this piece, and on your website as well, which is the fight scene. Now, it becomes a lot harder in low light with a flash and a Mamiya, medium format camera to make reportage images. How did you manage those moments?
Again, hoping for the right moment, pressing the shutter. Even I think that particular fight scene, that's not the only one in the book. The only fight scene, there are several, but that one, if I remember correctly, it was 3 photos I took at that moment. It was honestly just practice, a lot of practice.
I mean, there are other moments, aren't there, like the chap climbing in the window and various other moments during the book where you'd have thought, ooh, they could have turned round at that moment. I mean, ka-chunk, clunk, massive noise. Mamiya sounds lovely. It's a beautiful machine for the sound as much as anything, with a great big pop of flash. It's not so easy to be a reportage photographer with one of those, but you obviously found your way. You're a great conversationalist. You can strike up a chat with anybody anywhere, and this probably taught you some life lessons in that respect. Did you get better with that as you went along as well? I'm sure you did.
Absolutely. Of course, as you just said, it's not the first time I'm traveling this way. I have past experiences, several different ones in different parts of the world. But of course, in the US, as long as I was on the road, Americans call it you develop street smarts. And that is something you gain with every single day. Because it's not just about me striking a conversation. It's about, there's a huge topic is trust. They need to trust in me when taking me home or into their cars. But also, I need to judge in less than 1 single second, can I trust this person, going wherever they take me, sometimes in the middle of the night, into a forest.
Oh, my God.
I'm not even kidding.
Were there not moments where you thought, Victor, this doesn't feel right?
But then, usually, in most cases, as far as I remember, I was still in a situation where I said no. Yeah. I'm not going now with you.
And you did on one occasion, I think. There was the documented piece within the website. But I want you to try and pull another couple of moments out where you thought, well, give us one where you thought, I can't believe this is fantastic. How did I get here? I'd love one of those moments. And I would also like one of those moments where you thought, this is a bit tricky. I'm not quite sure where this is going, but it turned out to be okay. Do you mind recounting a couple for me? Let's start with the one where you think, wow, this is what this road trip is all about.
It was in South Carolina, a woman I'm still thinking about to this day. Her name is Jill. She's in the book as well. Her story is in the book. Almost, it feels, even looking back, like a Hollywood movie. It couldn't be better. She lives in a horrible relationship with her ex-husband, still together in the same house. And that Friday afternoon, before I met her, she decided to make a fleeting escape for the weekend. She just took a car after work and drove 400 miles because, and I hope that's appropriate for this show, because she hasn't had sex in 16 years. This was one thing she planned for that weekend. Second one, she wanted to see the sea, the beach. So and then I run into her. She strikes a conversation. She takes me with her, and I'm like on this wild journey for 3 days with this random woman who literally pours her heart out to me. I was very firm and strict, and from the right one, this was also part of my rules actually, not to have sex with anyone on the road. Besides having a partner back then myself, it's also, I didn't want to run in any kind of issue afterwards with the pictures and the people. So that was out of debate. But she found someone, and I was like, I was kind of part of the entire story.
You're the author in her love story.
That's a great description, yeah.
And come on, one of those moments where you thought, Victor, what have I done?
One guy in Northern California, Highway 1, pretty far north, took me. I had a really bad headache for a couple of days. Sometimes I have this issue. And he gave me a ride late afternoon, told me of some kind of alternative medicine stuff he's doing. Lots of people have shown good results, and he can definitely help me. Right. And I said, I was, okay, what do I have to lose? He seems trustworthy. I'm just going to go with him.
He'd passed the 1 second test, obviously.
Yeah, he passed the test. And then, but little I knew that it was already late afternoon. It was still a far way to his house, and it was literally night. It was pitch black outside in the redwoods, and we turned off on a dirt road because he said, well, my house is in the midst of the woods. So we went there. I would have never found my way out of there, like if I, for what reason, I had to run away. And then he prepared this algae cocktails for me, which he, and some pills, and also like it's all alternative, like it's going to help you. But this is, it sounds ridiculous. It sounds insane if everyone else would tell me that. But this is maybe a good demonstration of trusting people, seeing who can I go with and who can I not go with. Because at the end, it was a fabulous encounter. Yeah. This man was really interesting, even though his medicine didn't help me at all. But I survived. There was nothing with it. I came out of the woods next day.
Thank God. Well, you did, because you're here. Did you spend you would have spent the night perhaps with the chair shoved up against the door handle, I would have thought. I mean, I've seen this in movies, Victor. I know how the script usually goes. You're not just, I love this quote, you're not just an artist doing this. You're a brother, a father, a friend, a psychologist. Well, we found out that you're a psychologist, a social worker. You're a missionary, a priest, because people want to talk. And it seems to me that the curious photographer, of which you are in bucket loads, can really draw much from the casual stranger. I wonder if our curiosity with a camera trains us to ask verbal questions too, because I think that having a camera takes you to places and people that you would otherwise never think to experience. Now, not everybody has your courage. I know I don't. But we have a soupçon of it. Definitely. And I think the camera is a superpower.
I wouldn't not necessarily say that is the order it went from me personally in my development, because I would say it was kind of opposite. I first discovered in my the early 20s that I run into, like regularly, even in my everyday life, run into really interesting encounters with strangers. And then at some point I figured I need something to record it.
Yeah.
And then the camera fell into my hands, basically. But generally speaking, I do think the camera has this kind of superpower. Anyone who already has some spark of curiosity, if you then take a camera into your hands, and let's say you're interested in people, then you will find, if you have a little bit of courage, you will find open doors and ways.
Absolutely. I entirely concur with that. Sometimes in your pictures, it's the smallest of detail that I was looking at that you miss upon first looking into a picture. Then it becomes very apparent. You think, oh, what's going on here? Such as the character lighting up a cigarette, a picture that you took from behind them. And first I saw it and I thought, well, it's a person lighting a cigarette. But then there's a detail, a small swastika tattoo on the hand. Now, America can be, from the incredible stories told by photographers, local and foreign, it can be a land of such extreme. How did you deal with that aspect as a storyteller? Because you went with an open mind, but I'm sure you saw things where you thought, oh, whoa, what's going on here?
Absolutely. And that in literally different ways, be it on the political spectrum or personal spectrum, a lot of extreme opinions or behaviors out there. There's no doubt about that. I think my approach is, particular as a photojournalist, is to be not just to be curious and to be open to anyone, and with that goes also their opinion, but also to be tolerant and let people, doesn't matter how weird it is, talk and give them a voice. For the overall picture, this project hopefully shows or stands for. And then by saying that, yes, I encountered like this guy with the swastika and others in really weird situations and opinions. But as my rule personally is, as long as this person or people don't attack me, I listen and I write it down. I'm not there to teach them. I'm not to enlighten them or anything. I'm there to listen, and not even in my behavior even, or in my conversation, not even to judge them. I mean, it doesn't mean like that in the back of my head, I'm thinking, okay, that's foolish or whatever, but it's still what I miss often in today's media world, basically. It's so easy. It became so easy. Maybe it was always that easy to judge people and to frame the words or pictures in a way that it becomes clear the author meant to make them down or whatever. And my approach was, well, it doesn't matter if I meet a Republican or Democrat or whoever background-wise, I'm there to look with the same eyes and listen with the same ears to them.
Victor Hübner returns very soon for part 2. Have you been walking anywhere we should know about? Somewhere you think we'd enjoy seeing? Then do share your stories with us, please. The email address is stories@photowalk.show, stories@photowalk.show. If you're sending pictures through, please, if you can make it so, make them 2,500 pixels wide. That really does help the whole process of optimization, so it does. But if you can't do that, don't worry, I'll do. Fill in the gap. The heavy lifting, Neil. Yes, the heavy lifting. Shall we stop for some water in a second? Pups, it's a very warm day today. I've not made a lot of pictures, so let me make a sketchbook of this. It's a lovely swing bridge across the canal. I came the other week. Somebody had swung the bridge open, sailed their canal boat through it, and then left it open. There was no way across the river. I had to wait for another canal boat to come along. Peaking early. Here we go. Let's get a picture. Right, sketchbookers is what I call them. Some things and nothings and everything's all at the same time. Shutter speed 600th, f4, 160 ISO. And, I'm a bit underexposed here. I do tend to underexpose by one stop. I quite like shadowy pictures. There we go. There's a sketchbook from the swing bridge that was swung the other day. Here's a letter from Tom Webber. Hi, Neil. Just a mail or letter, as you say, to say thank you for your walks. My language is catching on. I am one of your non-photographic photo walkers, so I don't really take pictures unless my snaps with a mobile count. Yes, you know they do. Tom, come on. We say that all the time. Smartphone pictures count. I have some news which I know you'll be interested in, which came to me via a newsletter I get from Guy at the Right to Rome team, which you will find on right.2, the number 2, Rome on Instagram. Quick plug, I tell you what, I'll put the link on the show page. Without wanting to mention the P word, i.e. politics, but in last week's parliamentary debate on the access to nature, one of the parties, so this is a bit England land biased, but bear with me because you'll have your own rules wherever you are around the world. But one of the parties, the one that starts with L, confirmed that they would introduce a Right to Roam Act for England if elected, and said that their policy was for a Scottish-style right of responsible access. Music to my ears. I'm currently listening to older shows, as I've not long been a listener, and I've heard you mention this from time to time, your aversion to paths that are seemingly private for no reason. They'll introduce a Right to Roam Act, a new law allowing national parks to adopt the right to wild camp, as well as expanding public access to woodlands and waterways, just like in Scotland land. The Act will replace the default of exclusion with a default of access. For the health of the environment and all of us, we need free, fair and informed access to nature. Amen to that, Tom. Amen to that. Watch this space story. Talking of which, I'm going to be wild camping or bivouacking with a friend of the show in the coming weeks. We're going to do a whole show from the side of a mountain in Wales. A walk, a sleepover under the stars. You're coming with me. We're going to learn about survival in the wilds and photography, which doesn't allow me to even consider driving to the nearest B&B, which I believe is about 20 miles away anyway, so I don't think I have much of a choice. I'm not at all sure how it works logistically, whether I'll just get, midged to high heaven or chewed by a randomly wandering mountain goat. Who knows? Maybe I'll just roll down the mountain as I turn over in the middle of the night. Excuse me, goats, coming through. Anyway, that is to come. Looking forward to recording that. Now, our show, this one here, is made possible by our incredible patron community of Extra Milers who meet for our regular members Zoom show at the start of the month. There's one coming up. Plus, every Wednesday there's an extra Photowalk show called The Extra Mile. And the great thing is, you are the stars of that show. We hear about your adventures. Photographic, yes, but equally your inspirational life stories too. And this week my guests are former police dog handler, turned walker, musician and photographer, Miles Barfield. Let's take 2 minutes to hear a little of that chat, and the rest is now ready and waiting for you on the Extra Mile channel.
On this week's Extra Mile.
It started out, I started riding my bike in the country a lot on the old gravel roads for exercise. And being how early I'd get up before sunrise and usually get home after sunrise. That's whenever I took notice of how pretty it was. And it started out just taking pictures with my cell phone. And going into the music thing, I thought I could make my own album covers and quit paying hundreds of dollars for other people to do it. And so I started looking into the settings and all the technical stuff on cameras, because I've always had an interest in photography. I was just too lazy to learn it and get off the just basic mode, you know. The more I got into it, before I realized what was happening, my workouts that took 30 minutes are now taking about 5 hours, because I go out, I set up for pictures, I take it. So it started out just early morning sunrises, just over and over and over. And that's my first love. I've branched out a little bit. I've been into ICM a lot, just because I like the distorted view of it. I really wouldn't classify myself as anything. I just, whatever I'm in the mood for, that's what I shoot.
My reprobate mate Buddy Mullins, calls, we were talking about ICM the other day, and he calls it shaky pictures. I said, look, there's a lot more to shaky pictures than meets the eye. It's not as to get a good one, to get one that you think, oh, that's wall worthy, is a lot harder than you think. It's not just about throwing your camera around, is it?
No, there's a balance you have to find. Yeah. I mean, if it's too much, then it's just noise. If it's not enough, you just looks like a blurry picture. So there's that fine window that you have to find.
Do you have a magic setting at all? Probably not. I'm sure it changes according to the weather of the day. But I mean, is there sort of a rough? Well, I set aperture to this. I do this with my shutter speed.
The only thing I'm pretty hardcore on is the Nikon has the multiple exposure mode, and that's what I've been playing with the past month or so. Is I'll set it on maybe 4 overlap pictures and just take them in different ways and try to hold my camera with one arm, my left arm. That way it's a little bit shakier.
And that comment, the shakier arm, we'll get to within the show. We talk a little bit about adversity, just a touch. And then the roll of 12 features a former guest, Zishan Khan.
Which photographer would you invite to dinner, and what would your first question be to them?
John Brockless.
Okay, why?
I just love his work. I think he has depth. He does all kinds of different projects, different stories. The one question I had for him is that how does he capture those lighthouses out in the ocean with his Leica cameras? Like, what is he doing to capture that mood?
He's sitting on a rock, obviously, isn't he?
I don't think he's sitting, and I think he's in the ocean somehow.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, no.
Right? That's some great work. Yes, John Brockless would be the person that I put.
What would you cook him?
I would probably have a dosa or a thali.
Yeah. Are they particularly warm or hot, or?
It's warm and hot, sure.
Yeah.
A little bit spicy too, depending. Yeah. I think that would be my meal with him, and I'm sure he would enjoy it.
There's more. The whole show, it's about an hour's walk on this week's Extra Mile, which is out now, and you can become an Extra Miler by going to the support the show icon on the front of the website, photowalk.show. By the way, you can listen to 2 or sometimes 5-minute previews of the more recent shows in low resolution sound. You get a little taster of what the show sounds like if you follow that link. It'll be my meanders at the start of each show. And while I have your ears, back to Studio Neil for news of January's adventures with a camera in Africa.
Africa 24. We're now taking bookings. We're off together for it's a retreat, an expedition, it's a holiday in places, it's an all-in-one exciting adventure to the smiling coast of Africa, the Gambia. where we'll be spending time with the people of this wonderful small country on the West Coast, doing some stuff that you wouldn't otherwise do if you went by yourself. River trips and markets and wildlife and villages, the people in the villages, the music, the food. It's a 10-day photo trip guided by 3 experienced photographers and filmmakers, including yours truly. Go to the link on the show page and also on the menu at photowalk.show. A 4th place has just gone, and each Friday I want to share just one day from that 10-day trip, just to whet your appetite. On Friday, the 26th, so a few days into your arrival, documentary being a real part of our adventure. As a team, we're going to go and visit a local school. We're there to observe and experience, though importantly, we're also making photographs that the school will be able to use to show a record of day-to-day educational work in the country and a story to go with it. Following lunch, we visit Musa Jete in Sukuta, a region west of the capital. Now, Musa uses stitching and tying and wax stamping to create hand-dyed clothing using kola nut and indigo traditional methods. And he's let us in to show us how he works. We're going to be building a story and picture before travelling back to base via a forest park where a project to protect green vervet and western red colobus monkeys is being undertaken, the latter being an endangered species. In the evening, at the open-air, beautiful Fajara Garden restaurant, with the warm winds of a late evening Atlantic just kissing us on the cheeks, we'll have an opportunity to sample some Gambia traditional dishes, such as benachin and super kanja. We'll talk about our stories, we'll look back over our pictures and enjoy Kora ancestral and historical stories through music and dance. I'm hoping very much you'll like to join me on this once-in-a-lifetime trip, and if you'd like to come, then go to the website and click on the Africa 24 tab. The whole itinerary is there, and you have a chance to contact us and be the 5th member of this team.
So looking forward to Africa. Oh, can't wait. Don't wish your life away, Neil. No, I know. And actually, we've got Inverness coming up. Oh, so looking forward to that. Last year, had an absolute ball. This year, much of the same, I am sure. There'll be some friends that have been on the trip before and new guests as well. And of course, we'll be recording a show from Scotland land while we're there. Oh, so looking forward to that. Hey, if we could just do retreats constantly, 1 week to the next, pups, we'd be made. I'm not quite so sure that Barney is welcome at any of the venues. The havoc he would wreak, especially since there's, in Africa, it's so, there are moments that are, of course, very, very hot. I'm not sure that's quite whether Barney would enjoy it. There's lots of trains this morning, look. All the pinstripers off to work. Who did I speak to the other day? Oh, I don't want to spoil the interview, but he did say, I don't want a job. He was a photographer, and he'd figured out that he didn't have a job. Although he has an extremely good job, as it so happens. Anyway, don't spoil it too much. It's an interview I've already recorded. Remember Matthias Fox from Germany land last week with his AI dilemma, or Quizette? He supplied 11 images, photographs, and asked which ones are real and which are stapled to an algorithm, if you will. It's something, of course, that works better if you've seen it on last week's show page, 381, or you can follow this along as we talk about it from that page. But actually, the thoughts I'm about to share, they do stand alone in many ways, whether you can see the pictures at the moment or not. And whether our eyes are as good as we like to believe they are, it turned in some interesting thoughts and opinions. There's definitely, I would say, a dash of denial, I think, when it comes to believing what a computer can do. Not everybody, granted, no. So some of the comments, some of them, when you were faced with 11 pictures on the show page from last week and asked to identify which you believed were made by Matthias or any other photographer, come to that, as a photographer, i.e. taking a picture, making a picture, a photograph, and which ones are AI made by prompts by Matthias. Jay Illage. I'm going to perhaps rock the boat or ship a little, he says, and say that all 11 are AI. Ooh. Checking the edges of the subjects is often quite a giveaway. Many have the look of wet plate process, which most photographers don't use so frequently. Having said that, number 6, that could well be real. Huts in the Far East that look like a picture from Time magazine of old. Maybe that one's not actually real. I can tell you, Jay, and I actually added a little bit more grain to give it a filmic look atop what Matt had already done. That one is AI. You've guessed correctly. So Michael of Mixon, my gut tells me they're all AI, given the almost too perfect light and bokeh in most of them, but my gut also suggests that 1 or 2 may in fact be real, since having them all be the offspring of AI would be just a little bit too neat of an answer. And before you protest that a gut instinct should be singular and absolute, I should note that my gut has expanded a bit more than I like in recent years, which affords it the ability to hold, alongside the extra beers and burgers, multiple and competing hunches. So with that, my guess is that all but the following are AI, 2, 4 and 7. 2 being the picture of a girl walking away on a muddy road. Fantastic picture, barefoot in the rain. That surely has to be real. It's very evocative of a kind of Don McCullen image. Interesting you should say that. In fact, Matt used that as his prompt when making that as an AI picture. Oh, Neil, I think I can see where this is going. Paul Andrew Archer says that 7 of the 11 are real, so best part of 60% nudging on real for Paul this is, including number 5, that extraordinary picture of the girl, of the wet plate picture, that is, of the girl, the portrait, just beautiful. He says lots of soul, if you believe that the photographer produces that spirit as something we can pick up on. Kirsten Bednart says 6 out of that lot are real, so nearer to 50-50, including the fantastic medium format picture of a face where you can see the soft veins of the eye even. Very realistic. It looked. So what do you think? I think you were half expecting me to say all of them. Every single one was fake, if that's the right word, because I'm not sure fake can be applied to art. It can to a news picture, of course it can, yes. But art is art. So that's not necessarily fake. What is fake? That's a whole new program all of its own. So are they all AI generated? Or are some of them the work of Matthias Fox, the talented lensman? The answer is they are all AI. Alan Sorensen, I drew your name from the hat because you proposed exactly that. All AI generated. I will be sending you, though, a real famous, not so famous show flask, which of course you have to promise to take on a walk and photograph it in a way that shows me your life or where you walk. That's the deal. There are some interesting prompts, though, that were used to make these images, prompts you fed into the matrix as such. For the girl on the path, Matt says I mentioned Don McCullin in the prompt to get the corresponding black and white feel. The village on the hillside in Laos, complete with people within the picture just going about their day, the Time magazine looking picture. Well, that was the prompt. Make it look like a Time image. Other prompts: make a large format portrait of an elderly alpinist or alpinist. Portrait in the style of Martin Schorler of an elderly lady, 15mm lens, f2.8. So now we're even talking about the lens used as well. He, of course, is known, Martin is, and I'll leave a link to his amazing work for his remarkable close-up work. And so, yeah, it was a very interesting experiment and feature, that, wasn't it? I've left a link to a film where there's a more downbeat view of AI. I'm sorry about that, so watch behind the sofa on that one. But again, thank you so much to Matthias for your time in putting this together for us. It was really interesting as an experience and experiment. And if you want to see the full library of those shots, they're on last week's show page. As I say, episode 381. Assignment time. It's closer than you think. Yes, we're into the last week and a bit of sending your pictures in for the assignment. A tricky one, this one, I know, but it's good to have a challenge. It's good to have a challenge. Send them, please, your entries. We'll talk about it now to stories@photowalk.show. 2,500 pixels wide, whatever shape you shoot. And we'll upload it to the assignment page where you can see others and how they've tackled this one as well. It was set this month by Steve Reeves. He of the beautiful portrait work, and I might just add, he had a pop at the AI quizette too, and he guessed they were all AI. Bing, correct, Steve. He's a documentary and street photographer based in London. Many of his street portraits include small interviews, and that was what the challenge was. By the time you hear this, I will have had a chance, I hope, to upload some of the entries being sent in. I'm looking for one to win our famous, not-so-famous flask, though this one, well, it's one of those what I might term more challenging assignments, because he asked you to go and photograph a stranger preferably, but not necessarily. We kind of extended it at the end to include your family, but they need to tell you a story of their life, or perhaps a story of that moment. It could be as simple as what takes them to the place or the town that you met them in. And he did extend it to include a member of your family, because actually, and he made a very good point here, we often neglect, and I think we learned this from the very start of today's show, so there's a nice circle of life thing happening here. We often neglect to ask our nearest and dearest questions about their life, which is a shame. Can you imagine the quantity and quality of stories out there that are just so interesting to share? Now, I did have a go at this one myself. And you could probably replace the word interview people with the word chat, because I think interviewing sometimes does unnerve some people. Just think of it as a chat and record it in whatever way you do, such as a notebook and pen, or turn the audio button on your recorder. Some cameras, Fujifilm flavoured, have the ability to record short audio files as well alongside the pictures that you make. Not very long, that one, so it's not necessarily the best example. It's usually used just to remember somebody's name, or perhaps a place that you made your picture. So yeah, I had a go at this. I've done it twice. Once with my iPhone, the pictures that is. I wanted to make it really simple to see, take the image, make the images with a smartphone, because that's generally always with you. And then once with my X100V, my proper everyday camera. And I found a great place, a shop in Bath, which was superb. And it was a shop that I visited last week when I went photographing with Neil Ford and Robin Chun. This shop is a real gem. It's an artisan florist, it's a coffee shop, it's a vinyl records and cassette shop, it's a music label, it's just an Aladdin's cave of wonderfulness. The shop is called Chapter 22, Roots and Records. Roots being the plants, records being the records, obviously. So, microphone in hand, I asked one of the owners if I could record a chat. And he said yes. Now, I don't want to be self-absorbed, but I thought you might like to hear the chat I had, which I'm either going to transcribe or maybe pop onto the show page, or not so much the show page, sorry, the assignments page as an MP3. But I thought it might provide a bit of inspiration if you would like to join in with this month's assignment, for which you have 1 week. I'll extend it a bit, 1 week and a bit, to make your photograph, your portrait, and ask some questions as a chat / interview. Now, everything worked well until the end. The very end is where I made a terrible, with a small t, it's a lowercase t, a terrible error. You'll hear it, and I know you're going to say, Neil, let's roll tape, as they say. Press button, just on the hedge over here. What a strange place to have a button to roll tape. I think I might have just found my new favoritist shop in the whole widest world. This is amazing, but it's everything, isn't it? We've got plants in the front, we've got records in the midriff, I mean, this is an emporium of delight for me. Where did the idea come from?
Right, the idea came during lockdown. Me and Nicola got together. I moved to Bath just before lockdown, and we were thinking what we should do with the rest of our lives. Nick,
So you weren't together? You literally...
No, Nick worked in a florist for 25 years.
Oh, hence the florist at the front.
Yeah,
right.
and then I manage a couple of bands. I'm a national promoter, and I got a record label. So we wanted somewhere which combined all the things we love. Nick loves music as well, and then we spent a year thinking about this place, and it became actually quite easy to. When we found the space, we thought, this is it. We had the vision and we made it happen.
You're a record collector anyway, probably, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Is vinyl holding its value still?
Vinyl is hugely valuable. Anything from the 70s is hugely valuable, and the early 80s. Any punk stuff from 78 through to 83 is extremely valuable. Obviously, it has to be in fairly good condition. But there are huge collectors out there. There really are.
I saw there's a suitcase of cassettes over here. Do they hold their value now? I didn't look at the prices of them, but I looked at them with dewy eyes.
Our cassettes, they're still about 10 quid each. Yeah. And people buy them. People who have classic cars come in and buy them, or VW Campers. Yeah. And the Stranger Things phenomenon that got the youngsters into them. And this week we had a guy from Holland come over and he bought 20. It's even gone as far as the continent now, so tapes are definitely back.
And a coffee shop as well. I mean, florist, artisan flowers, I might add, records, cassettes, coffee shop. I wouldn't move out. I would never leave this place.
And we're a little venue as well.
Are you?
So we put live gigs on. So our first live act we put on here was Nick Hayward of Haircut 100.
No.
His one of his friends came into the shop, much like you, really loved it, and phoned him up in Florida and said, you need to come and play this place. Just so happens he was doing some acoustic stuff, and he came over. It was amazing.
How many people came to that gig?
50 capacity.
50, right. Okay.
Yeah, 48 women and 2 blokes.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Wow.
That's good. Yeah, so we do quite a few shows. Yeah. We've got John Robb next week with a book launch, his new book out, so we're doing that. Yeah, I know a lot of people from the 80s sort of like music scene. And there's a lot of famous artists live around Bath. Midge, he's been in here a couple of times. Sure. Robert Plant lives down the road, so he's popped by. So it's a cool little vibe.
Do Midge and Robert Plant, do they look in the record boxes here to see if they're...
looked and
see if their records are in
out
there.
One of his records, and we got a picture with him holding it. Yeah.
Did he buy it?
No. He had a tonics and a coffee.
Did he?
No. But because Bath's not that big a town really. When people are playing the Forum, which is the big venue in town, people walk around, and we've had bands come in here. Fontaines DC came in when they were playing Bath, and it's cool.
It all came, didn't it, from... I mean, this is a COVID success story. Yeah. And I know there are COVID success stories, but this is it's a COVID love story, and it's a COVID success story in terms of the shop.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Touch wood, it still carries on.
He says he loves you, Nick.
Yeah, of course I love Nick.
I know he does, yeah.
Come on then, what was that error? Have you spotted it? You didn't talk to his partner yet, very good point, but she was busy. She was doing something. They were just trying to get out, so I probably would have chatted longer had I been able to. So it's not that, no. You didn't ask more questions about his past? No, I didn't. That's very true, but again, we had limited time, so 4 or 5 minutes just to tell just a short story. No, it wasn't that. You didn't have any particularly large headliner question. No. You're going way off the beaten track now. Hang about. My other listener has got their hand up at the back. Do you want to answer this question? You didn't take his picture, Neil. You're absolutely right. Yeah, I didn't make the portrait. Well done, top of the class. Take a bow. Other listener? No. I mean, I did everything. I did what some people would call the hard part, didn't I? I got the interview. I got the chat. I recorded it. All I had to do at the end was say, can I just make your portrait? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Did I do it? No. I do have a picture to go with this, but it's not a person. Mind you, I'm hoping the fact that I did an unresearched ad-lib short sort of 4 minutes chat stroke interview may inspire you, may drive you to go and do your own. You have 1 more week and a bit of the assignment to go. Good luck. And I'm really, and I mean this, looking forward to, and Steve will be as well, looking forward to seeing what you produce. Oh, it's lovely here. Look at this. Oh, here we go. There's a sign. Private fishing, members only. But I thought we could walk along this. It's a footpath. Get off my land. It's a footpath. I'm sure we can walk here. I'm going to make a picture. I'm making a picture. Don't care. Making a picture. Here we go. I tell you what, it's worth becoming an angler, not for the fishing, just so I can go to these wonderful places around Berkshire land where I live. And I can show them. I've got my license, mate. Got my license. Here we go. Here's my permit. Come back a bit, pups, because I want to make a picture here. There's he's been very good today. You've hardly heard him. There we go. That's caused trouble. In a moment, he'll start barking. Right. Lake in front of me. Small jetty pointing out into the lake. Not the most beautiful jetty, I'll be honest with you, but it's a bit unkempt. But I'm going to make a picture. Here we go. There we go. So, you know what I love? Oh, what's that just fallen onto my back? Into my shirt. Ah, go away. What is it? An angler threw it. Somebody threw a worm at me. I'm sure, pups. Oh, ow! Did that sting me? Tell you what, we're going to the pub in a minute. Don't tell anybody else, pups. But we're going to go home via a little bit of a steak and ale pie. What about that? Oh, nice idea. Can I have a bit? Yeah. Oh, it's gone right down my back, this thing. Do you know what I really love about doing this podcast? Apart from creepy crawlies going down my back. Oh, I can feel it moving. You have to strip off. Not here. Go off my land. Don't you be doing that here. There's many things I love, but one of those is how involved you are in the whole thing. Frankly, without you, I don't think this would have lasted. It's a lonely planet podcast. Sure, you can see listening figures, but they are metrics without a face. Sounds like the title of a song. But you are that face from your letters and your notes, sometimes the physical things that you send into the handwritten postcards and stuff. I absolutely adore those. Those are a real joy. And most of all, the ideas that you send in. Your ideas are the fuel that make the whole thing motor along so nicely. You are without doubt, an ideas, you're an ideas engine. And so today's guest, as I mentioned before, is on because Sarah Moorcroft introduced me to him. And reading between the lines, it was a sort of a joint find because Sarah and number 2 offspring, I think you went to an exhibition or something, didn't you? Good morning, Neil, writes Sarah. You know you've morphed into a successful parent when your kids send you links to interesting photographic stories. It's only taken 28 years for number 2 offspring. But having dragged my daughter, willingly I might add, around the Glasgow Photographers Gallery, amongst other city activities, none of which involve shopping, as my Mother's Day weekend treat, she's now started to embrace the idea of storytelling. Through photography, that is. Oh, I can find so many more places to drag her for the ongoing education. And so here is a photographer with a great story. I'm assuming then it was something that you saw in the Photographers Gallery that led you both to Victor. I shall link to his work on the show page today, of course. There are a few places for you to go and read more about his work, including an Instagram. It really does look a remarkable, somewhat crazy sort of journey, says Sarah, that Victor Hubner took. Definitely not on my bucket list, but I was fascinated by his drive and story. So yes, here's part 2 of my conversation today with Victor Hubner.
it may seem a cliche question, but did you learn anything about yourself during this process? Now, I know you've been through this travel process before, and I'm just about to come to that now. But this particular project, did you learn anything about you? I mean, you'd studied in the country. The project lasted 2 years. I'm bound to ask actually whether you want to go back and do a bit more. But what did you learn about you, about Victor?
Another good question. I would say I learned to also go beyond my capabilities, to go beyond what I thought beforehand I can do. But I also learned how to respect my own boundaries in terms of when I need to make a break, for instance. Yeah. When do I need to put myself away from everything? And I learned to go even more than before, to go by my gut feeling, to listen with my inner voice. My gut feeling tells me, be it about the people I encountered, the trust, or the overall idea about the project I'm after.
Will you go back? I mean, there's a few states missing here.
Well, the book has been published.
I know, so, but it seems that there could be a part 2.
There could be also part 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there is no. I think the art, and that is not just for this project, but probably for many others too out there. The art is to find the right moment to stop.
Yeah.
Because you could continue forever. And as a perfectionist, as many of us are, it's hard to find an end sometimes. So I don't think I'm going to continue. Well, who knows? But I don't think I'm going to continue that project in that way. But perhaps it will be worth to go back in 20 years and do the same.
Watch this space. As I say, I started sort of the wrong way round, because 82 days on the road comes way before the American project that we've been talking about. Again, there's a very real, very obvious passion that you have for traveling and finding new friends in the cultures that you're walking through. Tell me about this journey, which I can't believe on this particular one, you took just 17 rolls of film. I mean, how can you tell that story in 17 rolls of film? That's being very, very careful with your shutter button.
That was really carefully, and parts of it was I was really a poor, broke student, so there was not much of more possible. But it started off with me having an exchange semester in Amman in Jordan, 2014, and I already traveled there with a one-way ticket. Basically, the abstract idea was, once the semester is over, I have 3 months vacation.
Yeah.
I just need to find an alternative way home. And that's how it was born, basically. I just took my backpack, I took the 17 rolls of film, my Nikon FM2.
Fantastic.
And great camera as well, and just hit the road. I was just hitchhiking. First in Jordan, then I went over to Israel. Then I found 2 Israeli guys, took me on a yacht to Cyprus. Almost thought I'm gonna die that night, because this yacht was really just a nutshell on the ocean, way too small for the journey. But everyone was shocked in the harbor when we arrived there finally. But they said, we did that for 30 years. We know how this works here. Then from there to Turkey, and from Turkey I made my way back until my hometown, 82 days. And it's a similar approach. I was not as strict with my routes, and I didn't have those kind of routes back then, but a lot of accidental encounters who grew sometimes over days to something truly, truly amazing.
You carried a journal with you as well, I think, didn't you? Yeah. I
love writing.
Yeah, like sound. That's another thing that I think as photographers we don't necessarily think of. Journals, sound, all those kind of things. You're going to have the most amazing journal collection as you go through the years, aren't you?
I'm working on it. It's actually started off with only travel journals, and now at this point I'm just keep writing about everything, and all my encounters and conversations, and it's becomes more and more important part of my life.
We talk much about legacy on this program. 10 years ago, your uncle was diagnosed with a severe form of cancer and was given a 3 months prognosis. Onkel Franz is the is the piece that you made. It wasn't just to tell the story of your uncle, as you say. It was the thought of showing what a human being and his loved ones are going through together when it's such a difficult path. I think in these difficult times as photographers, we have the ultimate and cathartic tools to guide us through. What did you feel about that project? What did you find making a project that was so personal to you as a family member?
Yes, that was, even it's a couple of years ago, it's still by far the most emotional project I ever did. Obviously, in other projects in the US, on the 82 days going home, there were intense encounters, emotional encounters, but it's nothing compared to seeing my own uncle in front of me suffering in pain, crying. I was literally sitting there crying behind my camera. But it also taught me that my camera serves me as a shield. I was able to be there, not just to be there for him, but also for a purpose. And that helped me a lot to go through that time and spend all the time with him, because I thought, okay, I'm not just here to comfort him. This is great too. And I was very passionate about it, but it was also about, okay, I'm here that serves a higher purpose, and it is to create such a record of these months, of his past months.
Did you record audio and do writing during that time as well? No, just photographs.
No, that was fairly early. I didn't do that back then. Now I would have done it if I would be in a similar situation. No, I started with the 82 Days project, writing and audio.
I dare say there are people going through a similar thing at the moment that might be listening to this, wondering how to approach that with a family, how to broach that subject and say, look, I'd like to make some pictures. I'd like to document this. What would your advice be to somebody who is thinking, I'd like to do this, but I don't want the family to think it's going to be in any way awkward?
Well, I'm a very upfront and honest person. I don't... Especially in these kind of situations, I think the best approach is a direct, honest approach of telling. In my case, I went to my aunt, I went to my cousin, my uncle's daughter, and I talked to them and said, "Listen, I love him. I want to be part of this, and I want to leave something for you, because as painful as it seems or is at this very moment, time will go by, and then it becomes a blurry memory." And maybe it could benefit to you. You could have something which is much more, which could, even if it's painful, even if you look back at it and it's painful, but it could be a true legacy, something for you to hold in your hands and to look at and see not just the pain, but also the strength and then the family commitment and love you had and share during this time. And actually, in fact, my cousin just wrote me perhaps a half a year ago, for not the first time, thanking me for that book about her dad and her mother.
It was a brave but important picture and a rather brave but important story to make. I said we'd be darting around your life a bit, and we are here. 2016, PKK, you spent some time there. Some of these places you go to are, I would imagine, are quite dangerous places to be. Tell me about that story, and then I want to come back and talk about your family and how they feel about you being a photojournalist and making stories, which sometimes many people would think there have to be other ways to be earning a living. The PKK for a start. Why did you take that particular story on?
It started with a friend of mine, back then a friend at my university, telling me that she has plans to go there, a Kurdish friend, and I could join if I will be open to work on such a project. So we ended up both together going there, fairly close to the combat lines. Back then, it was 2016, the PKK, even though considered a terrorist organization, was supported by Western allies in the war against ISIS. We spent time over several weeks on different locations between 15 kilometers away from the front line and sometimes literally at the front lines, but not in combat. I'm too tall for combat, especially in a land like this with nothing to hide. There, no tree, no rock.
I'd not considered that you're far too tall. Mind you, Don McCullin is a very tall man, and look at his career. I think you two are about the same. I can't remember how tall Don McCullin is, but I'd say the two of you stood next to each other would probably be fairly equal.
All right, brave, good for him, but
not for you.
Yeah, not for me. Yeah. But it was indeed fascinating time there with this organization, and not because I'm so sympathetic with them. It was more my approach back then was there was a lot of media attention about the PKK, in particular in the West, because we supported them, but little to nothing about their own approaches, their own ideology. And without diving now on their ideology, it is really interesting to investigate into what are they exactly fighting for, and why is that not communicated on our channels. And then also spending this time with the guerrilla, are their fighters, and see how they talk, how they live. What kind of people are they? Because it's not just Kurds. It's lots of, in particular, from all around the world, but a lot of Western people, a lot of Brits, a lot of Germans joining their forces and fighting. And then just as a side anecdote, what I found quite fascinating being out there is the war propaganda in these areas. Because I'm not sure, perhaps for you as well, coming from Britain with our history and me from Germany, we are in some ways quite pacifistic, raised up. And reading then stories, First or Second World War, how excited young soldiers signed up to go to the front lines, for us, it's almost unimaginable nowadays. But now me being placed there, listening to the guerrillas, listen to their fallen brothers and heroes and listening to their stories, and those are really wild. Logically, it can't be true what they're telling you there, because it's too wild about Rambos basically fighting out there in the front lines. But it does has an impact on you. It does have an impact on me. See, not that I signed up myself, I would have never not done that, but just to the emotions it sparks. That I got for the first time, I got an abstract understanding of, okay, wow, this is why people signed up back then for this. If you listen constantly, because it was a 24 hours propaganda, TV, speeches, and the comrades talking about nothing else but hero stories, basically, all about the enemy and their cruelties.
You called the project "Life Is For Us," and actually, "Life Is For Us" could really be a great title for much of what you do. Your photographs, your travels, your writings, your recordings, they show a deep fascination for other people and other cultures. What continually drives you to make these stories, to find new stories and find new people and travel to places and stay on their mats in forests where you don't even know the way out? What drives you to do this? What is your? We often say on this show, what is your why? And I suppose that's what I'm asking, really.
It's probably three answers I can give to that in short. So it's one hand, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, is that I have inside of me, I have this gift, this talent, perhaps, to go wherever I go, to be in very interesting, engaging conversations, and people take me to their homes, to places. Yeah. It's something not just in projects happening to me. There's something here. People come to me. It's easier for me in that regard to also be able to record it. And that was what led me to the camera, to the audio recorder, and to my journals, because I realized, okay, there is this potential. I carry it within me. So now how do I record it? The other very crucial reason is that I'm fiercely interested in history. I read biographies, I read history books, and this is something going back to my childhood, which has shaped me a lot. And I didn't become an archaeologist or an historian, but in some way I consider me and my work as as I say it, I'm a chronicler of our time.
Very much.
So this is, of course, just a glimpse insight into small areas. Even though the America project is fairly broad, the idea behind it just shows really small parts of our current time.
Yeah.
And this is how I like my entire body of work to be considered, perhaps even in the future or later, in myself, obviously. Then, as you said earlier, from the America project, I'm a psychologist, friend, father, brother, and missionary, priest, and all of that.
Yeah.
I do see myself also that's while doing this, being able to support people, to help people. A lot of people afterwards reach out to me, grateful for what I have invested into them. So I'm often not just looking at myself of taking, but also giving back in that moment to this very people.
I have to ask, and I don't know whether you'll understand where I'm going with this one, but it does occur to me with the sort of trips that you make. Have you ever bought a return airfare in your life?
In fact, in 2 weeks, I'm flying to the US, and I have already a ticket back home. So
it just seems to me you get a one-way ticket and you work your way back somehow.
If I would have been even more freedom in terms of time and everything else, I probably would make that my standards. Because it is indeed, a friend of mine recently asked me, Victor, how do you describe freedom? What is freedom for you? And I said, okay, if I really dig into my past experiences, when I experienced true freedom, then it is, for instance, one of my earliest trips, even before the 82 days trip in the Eastern Europe, me hitchhiking, I think it was in Bosnia-Herzegovina, hitchhiking, being in the early morning, a sunny day, blue sky, listening to a wonderful song, whatever it was, something I loved to listen back then, and I just walk over this bridge. I don't know where I sleep that night. I don't know who picks me up. I don't know if my money lasts. I don't know anything. I just know nothing else at home matters. It is me on the road at this very moment. That is freedom.
And my thanks to Victor Hübner. And I shall link to his book so that you can read the whole story. You can see, obviously, parts of the story and the links that I'll pop on the show page. But the book with all the pictures from that incredible journey will be fascinating, I know. Today's show page, 382 on our website, photowalk.show, has lots and lots of links and films about the stuff of life that we've shared today. Or you can follow the link in the podcast player app that will also take you there. It'll be in your app. Just click on that and that will take you to today's show page. If you'd like to talk a little bit more together, perhaps over the weekend, you can download now the Extra Mile. It is there with my two guests that you heard from a little bit earlier on today. The new Extra Mile is out. And if you remember earlier, I asked for possibly a bit of help. This was something that we've done before, but we don't do often enough. And I was reminded by those in podcast sphere that I should be doing this a little bit more. And you are always a fantastic help to this title. And I appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. You know that. So if you can do one of the following, or all of them, if you feel you've got a little bit of time on your hands, over the weekend, then could you share the show page to the episode that you're listening to now, the show page to this episode, to maybe a social media group, something like that, or Facebook, or somewhere where you think people might be interested in a show that's a walk, making photographs, something gentle-spirited. If you could share it or leave a review, that's the second one in the Apple Podcasts. I don't really push that one at all. That can really help the show to build and get noticed. Or just tweet the show's title as a podcast. That roughly fits into the social thing, doesn't it, really? Of course it does, yes. But that would be a fantastic help as well. The more we build our community and find new friends, the more we can do with a show. That's for sure. So that would really help if you have a moment that you could give me over the weekend. I'm helped behind the scenes so much, and I really appreciate it, by some fantastic friends. I think it's important that I thank them personally. Thank you, Neil Ford, for looking after the stuff that whizzes and whirs and has lights on that I just don't understand. Also, thank you to Andrea Gilpin, Head of Department on the Instagram and Ideas floor. Thank you to Emily Renier, who keeps a watchful eye out in our Facebook group. And for our latest admin as well, Kelly Mitchell. I'm sincerely grateful for the work that you're doing behind the scenes for us as well. Thank you. That's 4 thank yous, isn't it? Even with my counting, I'm sure that's right. Now, our play-out song today is from Hilltop Trio, Hey Hey Honey. Which is a bit different, actually. It's I think it's a bit different from what we usually play. It's blues meets retro, meets folk, meets... I just love it. All kinds of influence in there. I've started to formulate, and you can do this in Artlist that we use for the music on this show. I started to formulate some special playlists for upcoming YouTube films. YouTube, Neil? You didn't tell us about YouTube. I think I might have mentioned it. I definitely did to my extra milers. I've been discussing the start of some things with my extra milers. But yeah, this is on my summer evening dust kicked up through the rays of light playlist for some films I'd like to make. I'm going to start, and that was another thing they said at the podcast show. Are you doing some YouTube stuff? Oh, I don't know. I'm not Peter McKinnon, for heaven's sakes. No, but you don't need to think of it that way. So that was a bit of an extra kick up the whatchamacallit as well. So this song is I love it. It's on my playlist as well of stuff what I listen to in the car. It's definitely Drive Home with the Last Rays of Sunshine. If I had a playlist called that in the car, that's what it would be on. Right, this week's postscript to the show is a thought or a quote about travel, because it's been a theme of today with my guest Victor, hasn't it? It's pithy, it's perfectly encapsulating today's tone, I think. It's an anon quote, so I can't attribute it to anybody in particular, but I think it fits as well with our Africa trip that's upcoming. And this is it. We travel not to escape life, but for life not to escape us.
I got a letter this morning, boy. Hey, hey, honey. I got a letter this morning, boy. Hey, hey, honey. I got a letter this morning. Gonna see you when the sun goes down. I couldn't read it for crying, boy. Hey, hey, honey. I couldn't read it for crying, boy. Hey, hey, honey. I couldn't read it for crying. Gonna see you when the sun goes down. I got a gal in Georgia, boy. Hey, hey, honey. I got a gal in Georgia, boy. Hey, hey, honey. I got a gal in Georgia. I'm gonna see you when the sun goes down. She's a long, tall, yellow gal. Hey, hey, honey. She's a long, tall, yellow gal. Hey, hey, honey. She's a long, tall, yellow gal. See you when the sun goes down. She shakes like jelly, boy. Hey, hey, honey. Well, she shakes like jelly, boy. Hey, hey, honey. Well, she shakes like jelly, boy. See you when the sun goes down. I got a letter this morning, boy. Hey, hey, honey. I got a letter this morning, boy. Hey, hey, honey. I I got a letter this morning, gonna see you when the sun goes down.
What you doing? What you doing? You were very good. No barks today. No barks. That looks disgusting, that bone. You know that shouldn't be inside, don't you? That's not an inside bone. You're very lucky you've got me wrapped around your paw. Don't tell Mum.